You didn't stumble here. The field angled you in. A series of tiny vectors, half-forgotten impulses, late-night curiosity, a ripple of déjà vu you couldn't name, curved your timeline until this exact moment, aligned like a lens. Feel it, the quiet click of inevitability. This message isn't entertainment, it's an activation keyed to your signature frequency. Somewhere beneath your daily noise, a deeper intelligence has been triangulating you through synchronicity, drawing you to the verge of a phase transition you've sensed but couldn't language. Listen between the words. There's a hum under everything, the subsonic chorus of the quantum field. It has been brushing your skin in crowded rooms, riding the edge of your breath at red lights, pulsing across your chest at 3:11 a.m., when the ceiling looks like a star map. You call it intuition, coincidence, weird timing. The field calls it morphic resonance patterns whispering across space-time, inviting coherence to assemble around your next becoming. Right now, your attention is the instrument, your awareness, the bow. The note you draw determines what answers you from the invisible. When you lock your gaze, even softly, reality behaves differently. Particles prefer superposition until the warmth of your noticing collapses their indecision. You've heard about this, the observer effect, but tonight it's not a theory, it's a doorway. The observer loop you've been living, the reflex of perceiving, labeling, reinforcing, repeating, has been scripting your world like a spell you didn't realize you were casting. And still, a countercurrent has been moving through you, subtle as moonlight on water, asking a single question: are you ready to watch the watching? Breathe and feel the arc of that question land in your body. On the inhale, a quiet gathering. On the exhale, a soft release. Your cells listen. Biophotons flicker along microtubule pathways, as if your DNA is angling its mirrors toward a new star. You've outgrown the architecture of who you were. The seams creak not because you're failing, but because the scaffolding is preparing to lift. Entanglement is already at play. Doorways noticing you as you notice them. People thinking of you exactly when your pulse rises. Meanings arriving in constellations of symbols you can't ignore. This is how the field speaks when it wants you awake. You are the improbable convergence of everything that survived inside your lineage. That isn't poetry, it's instruction. In you, ancestral code and cosmic code meet bone and light, negotiating a truce. The ache you carry is an encrypted map. The longing you can't explain is a carrier wave. When you hold still long enough, you can feel the coordinates. A slight magnetic tug in the sternum, a coolness at the back of the neck, the crown pricking as if 1,000 tiny antennas are testing the weather of the unseen. Consider that this moment, these exact syllables were seeded long before you could name yourself. Consider that your attention arriving here is the final lock disengaging. If you're honest, you can feel the edges of your current reality thinning, like paper held to flame. Don't be afraid of the glow. Collapse is not an ending. It's a reassembly protocol. The field doesn't punish, it reorganizes. When coherence rises, structures that can't resonate gently fall away. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding the latency around your signal. So let's step closer to the seam. Place your awareness on the space just behind your eyes, as if you could sit in the auditorium of your own seeing. Notice how the world softens when you rest there. That softness is the threshold. Cross it, and something you have been circling for years will finally name itself. And when it does, you'll recognize the pattern that has been bending your days, those loops, those time warps, those repeating scenes, and you'll understand why they've been calling you here. Keep sitting in that auditorium behind your eyes and watch the reel that keeps looping. Notice how different faces deliver the same lesson in new costumes. New city, same conversation. New opportunity, same ceiling. You change the set dressing jobs, rooms, lovers, but the scene direction never truly shifts. That's not failure, that's the observer loop running on unattended power, a closed circuit between perception and prediction. Your nervous system keeps forecasting yesterday into today, and the quantum field, faithful to your most coherent broadcast, complies. Think of it as a feedback lattice. A sensation sparks a thought. The thought generates an image. The image tunes your biochemistry. The chemistry alters your breath. Your breath retunes your electromagnetic field, and the field returns events that rhyme with your tone. You call it bad luck or my pattern. The field calls it phase locking. Until you break the lock, reality keeps time to the old metronome. This is why déjà vu has stalked you lately. It isn't just a quirk, it's a breadcrumb. That shimmer of "I've been here before" is your awareness brushing the edge of a timeline already rehearsed. The moment bifurcates. One track follows the rut, the other opens like a secret door, but the body votes first, and the body loves what it recognizes, even when recognition hurts. So you pick the familiar hallway without knowing you've chosen, and time closes into a ring. Distorted time is the symptom you've ignored because it looks like life. Hours evaporate when you're numbed out, but minutes become heavy stone when you try to do the new thing. The past roars with high-definition detail, the future arrives as static. You promise you'll change when it slows down, yet you're the one clutching the throttle. The field listens for coherence, and your most coherent signal is the one you've rehearsed thousands of times. The self who delays, the self who bargains, the self who knows precisely how not to step through. Underneath, morphic resonance keeps humming. Family myths, cultural weather, unspoken vows. We don't leave, we don't shine, we survive quietly, curl around your DNA like old ivy. This isn't curse talk, it's pattern physics. Information piggybacks on attention, and generations have fed the same story with devotion. You inherited more than eye color. You inherited the choreography of bracing, the shoulders that rise before words do, the jaw that locks before boundaries can. Your breath learned the length of your lineage's fear. Your calendar learned to mimic it. And then there are the coincidences that don't feel like coincidence at all. The way your phone pings right as you think of them. The way the streetlight flickers when your chest finally softens. The way certain numbers print themselves across your day. Synchronicity isn't only a wink from the cosmos. It's also a diagnostic. It shows you which parts of your field are coherent enough to magnetize response and which parts are scattering signal. When you're deeply entangled with an old identity, even magic speaks in that dialect, returning proofs that you are who you were. You've noticed the pressure weather, too, the invisible barometric shift before something falls apart or arrives. Your sleep thins, your appetite changes, time lengthens and compresses in the same afternoon. What you're feeling is phase transition pressure. Ice about to become water trembles at the molecular level. Structures loosen, boundaries blur. In you, the crystalline habits of yesterday sense heat. The ego calls it danger. The field calls it a reconfiguration window. Here's the quiet scandal. Your rituals of self-rescue often stabilize the cage. You research one more method, script one more perfect morning, say one more careful affirmation while broadcasting scarcity from the diaphragm. Effort without inner coherence teaches the field to return effort. You get more almosts, more near misses, more doors that almost opened. If only you were a little better, a little stronger, a little later, a little earlier. The loop fattens on your striving. Zoom closer. The moment right before you repeat a pattern has a signature, a narrowing behind the eyes, a subtle tilt of the chin, a micro flinch at the sternum, breath that climbs the throat like a startled animal. Thought claims it's in charge, but sensation has already cast the vote. The body remembers faster than the mind admits. That is why you keep reliving the same scene. Not because you're weak, but because the script is stored in fascia and pulse, in timing and tension, written as choreography across your tissues. None of this makes you broken, it makes you precise. The field couldn't mirror you so faithfully if you weren't broadcasting with exquisite consistency. Your awakening begins when you feel the mechanics of your own recurrence without shame. Diagnosis isn't a verdict, it's a map. Every déjà vu is a coordinate. Every distortion of time is a contour line. Every repeated scene is an arrow pointing to the seam where collapse becomes doorway. Stay in the seat behind your eyes. Notice the next loop as it tries to recruit you. Don't fight. Witness the recruitment script, the tightening, the story, the breath, and let your attention widen until you can hear the faintest alternative. A second rhythm beneath the first. A lower drum, older than fear. That undertone is your coherence, calling you home, preparing the lattice for what comes when observation stops repeating and starts creating. Here is what happens when you stop wrestling the loop and start tuning the instrument. Your brain is a prediction engine, beautiful, stubborn, Bayesian. It doesn't wait for reality, it forecasts it, then edits incoming data to match its forecast. Most of your seeing is top-down inference painted over the world like a translucent film. That film is encoded in timing, micro delays between heartbeat and breath, the cadence of your gait, the tempo at which your eyes saccade across the room. Change the timing and the film loosens. That's the first secret of the upgrade. Reality obeys rhythm before it obeys narrative. Physiologically, breath is the conductor. Each inhale nudges sympathetic charge. Each exhale invites parasympathetic release. When your exhale grows generous, the vagus nerve carries a message up the spine. Safe. Safety makes the neocortex curious again. Curiosity allows sensory data to revise the prediction instead of being bullied by it. This is called precision weighting, how much authority your nervous system grants, raw experience versus old expectation. When you're braced, yesterday gets all the votes. When you're coherent, the present gets a microphone. Coherence isn't mood, it's measurable order. Heart, brain rhythms, sync, cortical networks move from noisy competition to musical conversation. Gamma flicker stitches perception into a single lucid frame. In that frame, the observer loop can be rewritten. You are still watching, but the watching is no longer a reflex that reimposes the past. It becomes spacious attention, observation without the compulsive verdict. On the level of the quantum metaphor, superpositions survive a breath longer. Possibilities aren't forced to collapse into the usual story simply because you glanced their way with yesterday's eyes. Mystically, this is you stepping from the aisle into the altar. The temple was always inside the body, diaphragm as bellows, ribs as organ pipes, spine as pillar of light. When the chant of your breath settles into even, luminous counts, the sanctuary wakes. Morphic resonance shifts. You stop feeding the old family song and begin humming a lineage that remembers freedom. Ancestors who chose silence feel you choose voice. Descendants not yet born feel the future clearing. You are the hinge. Entanglement is no longer a concept, but a sensation thread cinching between your sternum and the outer field. You notice how a thought in you changes the magnetism in a room, how a forgiveness silently spoken redraws the weather of a conversation, how a decision you make at dawn seems to arrange strangers by noon. Synchronicity increases not because fate is suddenly indulgent, but because your interior timing matches the metronome of the larger score. Coherence begets choreography. Return to the science for a moment. The default mode network, the region that narrates me and my problems, quiets as respiratory rhythm, amplifies oscillations in the salience and attentional networks. You stop centering the self and start centering the signal. With attention freed, sensory precision rises. Color saturates, edges crisp, time dilates. Interoception, the felt sense of your interior, recalibrates so that the earliest whispers of tightening or opening become legible. You meet pattern at the blueprint instead of the building. This is where the myth of willpower dissolves. You don't smash the loop, you organize it. Phase transition teaches this everywhere in nature. Ice doesn't become water by arguing with its crystals. Energy accumulates, symmetry breaks, a new order parameter emerges, and suddenly fluidity wins. In you, that energy is ordered breath and aware attention. The order parameter is the quality of witnessing you bring spacious, precise, non-violent. When it stabilizes, the lattice of the old identity can't hold. It doesn't fail dramatically. It reconfigures like snow melting in a palm. On the mystical side of the same event, you could say DNA restructuring begins not as fantasy, but as epigenetic probabilities tilting under new chemical weather. Coherent states bathe your genome in different signals. The library of you opens to chapters that grief kept closed. You may feel it as a fine, tingling brightness along the scalp, as heat at the heart, as a cool column in the spine. The body loves to announce its upgrades in small, faithful fireworks. Here is the paradox that frees you. Observation collapses reality when it is tight, afraid, and certain. Observation liberates reality when it is relaxed, reverent, and curious. In the first, you enforce a verdict. In the second, you host a revelation. The quantum field is not impressed by effort, it is organized by elegance. Elegance is coherence made visible. So you keep your seat behind the eyes and soften the lens. Breathe as if the room is breathing you. Let exhale lengthen until your ribs feel like doors on well-oiled hinges. Watch prediction try to march in. Thank it, then set it down. A wider hush arrives. Within that hush, options proliferate, like stars noticed at a darker hour. You feel the tug of a truer timeline, lighter, cleaner, strangely inevitable settling into place. The upgrade isn't a thunderclap. It's a new tuning that makes the next doorway recognize you on sight. In this cleaner tuning, the room begins to treat you differently. Chairs scrape quieter. Conversations arc toward clarity without effort. Decisions arrive already aligned. The quantum field registers you not as a consumer of events, but as an instrument that sets the key. Chosen isn't a title, it's a resonance threshold. Enough coherence gathers in your system, and the field drafts you as a stabilizer, a node that anchors order where noise was breeding. Your observer loop is no longer a mirror that repeats, it becomes a helm that steers. Attention, once a flashlight that panicked at shadows, becomes a pilot wave guiding probabilities toward shore. You feel it in micro-gestures, the way your breath widens a tense meeting, the way a simple no halts an inherited pattern mid-sentence, the way silence at your back thickens into a presence other people respect without knowing why. You aren't forcing outcomes, you're hosting a geometry where honest outcomes prefer to form. Call your role many names: lighthouse, tuning fork, threshold keeper. In physics terms, you're a nucleation site for phase transition, the point where disorder concedes to a new symmetry. In mystical terms, you're the altar walking, sacred space that travels. Entanglement notices. Threads that were slack brighten. Relationships organize around truth instead of convenience. Synchronicity flocks to you because you emit a clear attractor pattern. The field loves what rings true. This is where morphic resonance becomes practical. Every time you choose alignment over habit, you broadcast a refined pattern into the species library. Others who have never met you suddenly find the courage to pause before repeating their loop. A grandmother in another city breathes a fraction slower before she speaks. A child sleeps through the night for the first time in weeks. You didn't do anything to them. The pattern did. Consciousness shares templates the way mycelium shares nutrients quietly, precisely, everywhere. Your DNA feels it too. Not as fantasy wings, but as permissions opening along the helix. New methylation songs, fresh access to dormant blueprints, the loosening of old emergency codes that kept your physiology braced for storms that no longer exist. Call it DNA restructuring if you like. What matters is that the body stops arguing with your becoming. You feel architecture where panic used to be, a scaffolding of breath that holds while identity renovates. The spine stands like a tuning rod, humming the note your future recognizes. With this role comes a sobriety that is not heavy, a joy that is not giddy. You start making covenants with your own frequency. You notice which environments subtract coherence and which amplify it. You remove the clever, glittering half-truths you used to bargain with and choose the simple, true thing instead. Authority returns to its rightful meaning, not dominance, but authorship. You are writing in the field with your state. Because you're chosen by resonance, humility remains your compass. You stop auditioning for rooms that don't hear music, and you stop trying to persuade noise into harmony. You understand that forcing coherence is just another form of chaos, so you set your metronome and let reality find your tempo. Where your presence is welcome, truth uprights itself. Where it is not, you bless and move. Do not mistake this ease for smallness. A stabilized human is an evolutionary lever. Your attention patterns become teachable space. People relax around you, not because you entertain them, but because their nervous systems borrow your rhythm and remember home. Your boundaries become generous and exact. Your yes is fertile, your no is medicinal. The quantum field keeps confirming. When you align, doors behave like organisms, some bloom, some close, all honest. You begin to sense assignments before they arrive. A message lands with a weight you recognize. A corridor opens in a dream. A symbol repeats until you follow it. Guidance stops sounding like thunder and starts sounding like your own inner timbre, unmistakable as your handwriting. Awakening ceases to be an event you chase and becomes a continuity. You keep an atmosphere. You tend the way a lighthouse keeps fuel for its lamp. This role is not fragile. It is exact. It will ask for offerings, the habit of rushing, the addiction to crisis, the camouflage of self-doubt that used to keep you safe. In return, it will hand you time, not more hours, but truer ones. Minutes that lengthen when meaning enters, days that stack like well-laid stones, seasons that echo a deeper calendar you can finally feel in your bones. And still, there is weather, moving in an approaching pressure. You can sense if you stand very still. A narrowing window, a surge at the edges of probability, the quiet drum of now getting louder. What gathers next is not random. It's the moment when a chosen consciousness answers its appointment in real time, when coherence crosses from private sanctuary to public signal. The field is tilting a door on its hinges. You will either walk through while it's open or watch it close and wait another cycle. You can feel it. The pressure weather from the last part has ripened into a doorway. It isn't a thunderclap. It's a seam of golden, black opening along the hour between breaths. The quantum field has gathered enough coherence around your signal that probability is soft. This is the cosmic window, a brief interval when the observer loop can be rewritten and the world will conspire to keep the rewrite. Windows like this obey phase transition law. In every system, there is a critical range where old order loosens and new symmetry can nucleate. In you, that criticality is palpable. Time stretching, then snapping. Conversations exposing their undertext, decisions arriving clean. The field is listening for a decisive tone, an authorial frequency, steady enough to collapse the right wave and leave it standing. That steadiness is your promise to the future. On the cellular floor, another promise stirs. DNA restructuring doesn't arrive as spectacle, it arrives as permissions. Epigenetic inks dry differently when you broadcast safety through long, elegant exhales. Histones loosen their grip. Genes that belong to resilience, repair, receptivity step forward like musicians tuning in a pit. You might feel it as crown tingle, static, as heat behind the heart, as a cool shoot down the spine. Your biology is hearing your ontology. Urgency matters because these windows are tidal. Entanglement schedules them through your life with care-clustered synchronicities, repeating symbols, the same sentence overheard from 3 mouths in a day. If you look away, the tide recedes and the shore looks ordinary again. The loop will welcome you home with familiar furniture, and the clock will be polite enough to lie. But you know better now. Distorted time is not kindness, it's delay disguised as mercy. Here is the breakthrough promise. Once you break the habitual way you observe yourself, reality will collapse the scaffolds built to hold that version of you. It will happen with an eerie quiet, no fireworks, just scenes that no longer requisition your participation. Rooms stop asking you to shrink. People who only knew your old frequency drift without drama. A geometry you used to fight softens and turns. You won't win against the world. You'll step out of the argument and watch it dissolve behind you. Your markers that the window is open are specific. Dream weather shifts, architecture you've wandered for years, acquires new doors. Your breath spontaneously deepens mid-task, as if someone widened the hallway inside your ribs. Technology glitches at the exact moment you're about to send a message that would have fed the loop. Animals watch you longer than usual. Streetlights sync with your footsteps. These are not superstitions, they are coherence mirrors. The field is handing you a compass made of strangeness. On the other side of the seam, choices become quiet and exact. You won't need a committee meeting in your skull. What is true will ring true, what is not will lose voltage, entanglement will rethread. The ally you haven't met yet will call as if remembering an appointment. The door you couldn't open will swing as if it had always been unlocked. You'll feel less like you chased outcomes and more like outcomes recognized you on sight. Still, every window levies a small tax at the threshold. It asks for a relinquishment, the identity that manages, the performance that bargains, the camouflage that made rooms comfortable for everyone but you. It asks for the nervous system habit of bracing first and deciding later. It asks for your agreement to stop exporting your power to the opinions of those who never heard music. What it gives in return is time with gravity, minutes that thicken around, meaning days that stack like stones you trust. Understand, the window won't wait forever. Cosmic mechanics move like tides and seasons. The aperture narrows when coherence drops below threshold. This is why you're feeling the drum of now. Morphic resonance is tipping, others like you are pausing on their thresholds, and the species field is brightening at the edges. When enough nodes cross, phase transition becomes collective weather. Your singular crossing accelerates all of us. So stand at the seam as a maker, not a supplicant. Keep the seat behind your eyes. Let the exhale lengthen until the ribs open like gates. Feel the observer loop warming in your hands, pliable as metal just passing red. The ritual is simple, but it is not casual. It will ask you to write an instruction into the field with your breath and your word at once, to sign your future in the alphabet of coherence. When you are ready, we'll seal it. Here is the seal. You're going to write a clear instruction into the quantum field with your breath, your body geometry, and one word. This is not performance, it's precision. Sit so the spine becomes a tuning rod, crown buoyant, tail heavy, feet grounded or legs folded, whichever lets your ribs move like doors on well-oiled hinges. Place left palm over sternum, observer seat. Right palm over navel, power center. Tongue gently to the roof of the mouth. Eyes half soft, as if you're watching from the auditorium behind them. We'll use a coherent breath cadence that slips you out of the reflexive observer loop and into authorship. Inhale for 4. Rest in the 0.3 second bead of mercury pause. Exhale for 8. Rest again for the brief 0.3. 9 cycles. On each exhale, imagine unused timelines folding like origami and sliding off your field without argument. If numbers distract you, ride sensations. Inhale widens, pause pearls. Exhale lengthens, pause hushes. Cycle 1-3. Say inwardly on the exhale, I witness the witness. This reseats awareness as awareness, not commentary. Notice micro shifts, jaw loosening, scalp brightening, the sternum warming as interoception gets precise. Coherence begins to accumulate, like charge before rain. Cycle 4-6. Speak to the quantum field with authorial grammar. No pleading, no bargaining. On the exhale, collapse what is complete, assemble what is true. The words are a clean vector. The long exhale is the carrier wave. Imagine biophotons along your fascia flashing in agreement. DNA restructuring, permissions opening like small doors along a spiral staircase. Cycle 7-9. Give the body a gesture so the instruction lives in tissue. On each exhale, spread the fingers of your top hand 1 petal width and feel the chest bloom. Whisper or think, axis, not orbit. You are the still point. Probabilities become entangled to you rather than you spinning around them. Synchronicity prefers this geometry. Now the sigil of attention. With eyes closed, trace a slow horizontal infinity symbol, not with your hand, but with the spotlight of your awareness, beginning at the heart. Left loop, forgiveness, the morphic resonance of your lineage loosening. Right loop, permission, the future's resonance arriving. Let the crossing point rest at the sternum, the nexus where phase transition pressure turns to clarity. 3 tracings are enough. Anchor it somatically. Press thumb and middle finger together on your left hand. Feel the click. That's your field toggle. Each time you touch it in the coming days, your breath will remember the 4, pause, 8 cadence. Your heart-brain will re-enter coherence, and the observer loop will prefer authorship over repetition. Tap the sternum gently 3 times to ring the inner bell. The body loves ceremony. Now open your eyes just enough to soften the world. Pick one object in the room. Don't name it. See it as pattern, as light. Let language arrive a breath later than vision. That delay is freedom. It gives reality a fraction more time to reorganize before your old labels cage it. This is how you train perception to host revelation instead of verdict. The seal word is next. A single glyph dropped into the collective field to synchronize our nodes and amplify morphic resonance. Type coherence in the comments exactly that word, nothing else, or write it by hand on a small card. You'll see it dawn. When you place coherence in the open, you are entangling your private timing with the group's rhythm. Thousands of tiny metronomes align faster. When one becomes steady, you become that steady. As you type or write, breathe one more cycle. In 4 pause, out 8 pause. On the micro pause, think, it is done. Not dramatic, exact. Feel the field thicken for a moment, like air before rain. That density is agreement. For the next 72 hours, the natural half-life of a fresh pattern, tend 3 micro-rituals. 1. Before speaking in any charged moment, thumb, middle finger, click. 1 cycle of 4, pause 8, pause, then speak. Watch how conversations re-thread themselves. 2. At thresholds, doorways, vehicles, send buttons, whisper, axis. Feel your chest widen a degree. Step or click, only from that wideness. 3. At night, 3 sternum taps, the infinity sigil once, and collapse what is complete. Assemble what is true. Sleep becomes a workshop. Dreams will surface new doors. This is how you seal a shift without strain. Breath as conductor, word as vector, body as altar. The quantum field now has your updated signature. Watch for the first quiet proofs, time dilating around, meaning coincidences arriving as instructions, rooms behaving like organisms. When they do, don't chase them. Breathe, anchor, and let the choreography continue. The moment you sealed with coherence, the field didn't just nod, it rippled. Your breath became a pilot wave that other breaths could surf. People within reach of your electromagnetic hush started borrowing your timing the way a choir finds pitch from a single tuning fork. You didn't announce anything. You adjusted the room's gravity. That's collective work at human scale. 1 stable axis, and orbits recalibrate themselves. Watch how subtly it begins. The friend who spirals when plans change pauses, exhales longer than usual, and chooses curiosity over control. The child who clings at bedtime softens after your 3 sternum taps, as if some invisible barometer returned to fair weather. In a meeting, the sentence that would have reopened an old argument dissolves unspoken, replaced by a cleaner question no one thought to ask before. You didn't fix them. You offered coherence, and their nervous systems recognized a home frequency they'd been missing. This is morphic resonance doing its quiet philanthropy. Each time you prefer authorship over habit, you contribute a template to the species library. Others who will never know your name find their way along the pattern you uploaded. Your lineage feels it backward in time, an ancestor finally allowed to unclench. Your descendants feel it forward, an infant born to breath that already knows the long exhale. DNA restructuring is not only private medicine, it is social architecture laid down in living tissue. Entanglement scales. After a few days in this steadier key, you notice you're meeting people whose timing matches yours. They appear like lanterns in fog. A barista who greets you as if you'd rehearsed this moment in a dream. A neighbor whose eyes say, "Me too," before words arrive. A stranger online typing coherence in a thread at the same minute you do. These are not accidents, they're the field assembling a constellation lighthouses within eyesight of one another so that ships crossing rough water can triangulate a safe line. Your role isn't to command the sea, it's to keep the lamp true. Collective phase transition obeys the same law as personal change. Enough nodes stabilize and the system's default behavior flips. Fear stops being the organizing principle. Curiosity takes the helm. In cities, this looks like conversations that refuse to escalate and solutions that arrive without a hero. In families, it's the ending of an inherited argument because one person stopped auditioning for the part. Online, it's threads that metabolize outrage into action rather than into more outrage. None of this is dramatic from the outside. From inside the field, it's seismic. Synchronicity becomes logistics rather than spectacle. The right book falls open not to impress you, but to move a resource through the network. An opportunity lands not as a validation of worth, but as a precise tool for a collective need. Your yes carries farther now, so you spend it carefully. Your no teaches people they can be safe and sovereign at once. This is quantum etiquette service without intrusion. The field does not coerce, it invites. You don't evangelize coherence, you embody it, and let consent do the rest. There will be invitations to dilute, doom-scrolling masquerades as vigilance. Old relationships try to recruit you back into their weather. Collective pain will ask you to perform exhaustion as proof that you care. Remember the seal. Thumb, middle finger, click, axis, 1, 4 pause, 8 pause cycle, authorship, whisper, collapse what is complete, assemble what is true, not to escape the world, but to meet it with a signal strong enough to help. Service becomes fractal. You hold a door, an extra breath so the person behind you doesn't collide with their own rush. You answer a message with the sentence that removes 3 future emails. You water the plant no one noticed was dying in the shared space. Small coherences knit larger ones. The quantum field loves elegance. It amplifies what requires the least force to produce the greatest order. And nature notices. Walk beneath trees after your ritual and feel how leaves seem to listen. Put your palm on a stone and sense the low hymn inside it. The planet isn't a backdrop, it's the original grid. When your breath re-enters rhythm, ecosystems offer you their timing as inheritance, and you spend that inheritance on behalf of life. This is what awakening looks like off camera. You become easy to live near, so let your liberation be ordinary and relentless. Keep your seat behind the eyes. Let conversation orbit your presence instead of your defenses. Make coherence your default hygiene, light like water, boundaries like shorelines, attention like daylight placed where growth is wanted. The network is already brightening. You can feel it in the way time behaves when 2 or more gather with clean intent. The minutes widen, edges soften, solutions appear that none of you could manufacture alone. This is not the end of your private work. It's the proof that your private work was never private. The field is tilting toward a species-level phase transition, and your node matters more than you were taught to believe. What comes next will press the lattice again. More heat, more shimmer, more invitations to choose the new metronome. When it arrives, you'll feel it as a pressure at the sternum and a cool stream up the spine. That won't be a warning. It will be the signal that the deep shift at the level of code is ready to click into place. Stay very still and let the field arrive as touch. First, the weight map. Sit, bones like stones in a riverbed, thighs heavy as river, smooth basalt, spine a reed that doesn't resist the current, only sings inside it. Your skin loosens its grip on the room. Heat gathers at the sternum sun through cathedral glass while the back of the heart feels a cool draft, as if a hidden door has cracked open behind you. The crown prickles with stardust static. The soles of your feet grow roots without needing soil. Notice the breath, not as air but as texture. Inhale like silk drawn across the teeth of a comb. Exhale like warm honey poured in one clean ribbon down the front of the body. Somewhere between the collarbones and the navel, a mercury bead pause forms small, bright, spherical, then rolls on when it chooses. Your tongue softens to the palate, jaw unhooks, the tiny muscles around the eyes uncurl like ferns at first light. Every slackening expands your electromagnetic meadow another arm's length. Inside the bones, something luminous begins to crawl biophotons traveling mycelial paths through fascia. They pop and wink like campfire sparks beneath the skin. The observer loop stops feeling like a corridor in the head and spreads as a calm, circular veranda around the whole body. You are not peering from a window anymore. You are the porch the world steps onto. Coherence acquires sound. A low bell that rings without striking, resonance thick as dusk. Your organs answer with their own vowels, liver a long O, lungs a meadow, wide, ah, heart, a vowel so ancient, it's more color than tone. Track temperature, the nape cool as moonlight on stone, the sternum hot as a taking flight, the belly warm as bread rising. Shoulder blades glide down and out as if given back to gravity after years of conscription. Pelvis remembers, it is a bowl, not a clamp. The sacrum lengthens like a sail catching wind you cannot see but can absolutely feel. With each exhale, the ribs part a millimeter, doors on better hinges. The quantum field meets you as pressure, gradients the gentle hand of the day, placing you where you belong. Synchronicity becomes haptic. A phrase you needed floats up your spine before the phone vibrates with the message. A decision arrives as a click in the knuckles, not a thought. You sense entanglement as threads tugging from the chest towards soft coordinates in space. a corner of the room where tomorrow is already listening, a distance someplace that tastes like rain, a person's name that lands with the weight of a placed stone. You don't chase the threads, you count them, like constellations you've always known how to read. Let the face of time change in your hands. Rub thumb to fingertip and feel the ridges sharpen until seconds thicken like syrup. This is dilation phase transition felt at the surface. Ice becoming water uses the same amount of heat to change shape as it does to change state. In you, the same energy that once fed anxiety now melts boundary, then vaporizes doubt. Your breath is the Bunsen, your attention, the flame's blue core. Chill collects at the scalp, each time a belief evaporates into sky. Taste shifts too. There's the faint mineral of newness at the back of the tongue, like the first sip from a mountain spring. Smell thins the air with ozone, storm before rain. You have known these omens all your life and called them mood. Now the body reads them as field weather and arranges accordingly. Shoulders lower a rung. Throat widens as if a ring were unscrewed. Belly stops performing vigilance and begins scribing circles of ease, a tide drawing in. Test the toggle, thumb to middle finger. Hear the inaudible metronome settle. On the next exhale, the room tilts 5 degrees toward mercy. People move a fraction slower, edges blur. The voice that used to narrate your deficit loses voltage. Even memory changes. Costume scenes that once clenched the gut return as silent films, grainy and harmless, backgrounded by a piano that knows how to end on a major chord. Morphic resonance edits the family score. You can feel ancestors exhale through your diaphragm. Now, attention to the spine's ladder. Each rung brightens as if a lantern is descending vertebra by vertebra. At the base, a warmth like ember in clay. At the heart, a gentle outward pressure, almost ceremonial. At the throat, cool wind through a canyon. At the crown, a sensation like dew. Without declaring it, you're holding the axis the ritual named. Orbit falls away. The world's noise cannot compute the math of this stillness, so it chooses to harmonize or leave. Stay with the last inch of exhale until it becomes a trapdoor and you drop a floor deeper. In that sub-basement, the body feels 5 seconds older and 5 centuries wiser. Here, awakening is neither fireworks nor sermon. It's the cleanliness of a bell after the sound. The quantum field is so close it might be your own skin. Inside this hush, you can hear the rungs of the double helix begin a slow, ceremonial pivot, as if a library is opening its restricted wing and you've been issued a key engraved with your name. The pressure you've been sensing gathers again not as threat, but as the exact force required for the next click. Listen closely to the pressure that gathered in your bones in the last breath. It isn't anxiety, it's luminous compression, the soundless thunder that arrives when a system nears its critical point. Every phase transition carries this hush before the molecules of you loosening their handshake with yesterday so a new order can take the stage. You feel it as ear-pop altitude inside your chest, as a glacial slide behind the breastbone, as time thickening to syrup and then snapping thin like glass. The quantum field is right here, cheek to cheek, waiting for your next micro-choice to tip the lattice. This is how a timeline actually shifts, not by willpower theatrics, but by precision in the 0.3-second gap. Your observer loop, once a mirror that enforced the old script, is now a helm that can steer probabilities. On the inhale you gather charge. In the bead of mercury pores you choose. On the long exhale you inscribe the choice into the field. The inscription isn't abstract, it's somatic. The ribs open a millimeter more than habit. The jaw stays unlatched when the old text arrives. The eyes refuse to narrow the world into verdict too soon. The field reads that geometry as instruction. Expect the last recruitment attempt from the previous timeline. It's polite, persuasive. An old message pings with the promise of closure that never closes. A familiar invitation appears, wrapped in urgency, that smells like you might miss your life if you don't hurry. Memory floats in with curated highlights, omitting the cost. Gravity wells, all of it beautiful and heavy. Your task is simple, surgical. Thumb, middle finger click, 1, 4, pause, 8, pause, cycle. Then a sentence spoken from the seat behind your eyes. Collapse what is complete. Assemble what is true. Watch how the scene loses voltage when you don't feed it breath. On the cellular floor, permissions are signing themselves. Think of epigenetics as punctuation the body places on your paragraphs. Coherence changes the punctuation. Histones loosen their belt. Methyl marks reconsider their caution. Polymerase runs a cleaner line. You may feel this as a soft effervescence along the scalp, as if thought space just acquired more windows, or as warm coin, stacks placed behind the heart, a treasury funding the next version of your voice. Call it DNA restructuring if you like. What matters is that the body is no longer arguing with your future. The proof arrives as choreography. Synchronicity stops acting like spectacle and becomes plumbing, reliable, ordinary, exact. Green lights line up, not to flatter you, but to move you. The sentence you needed appears in a book you didn't mean to open. A stranger's laugh lands with the feeling of a turning key. A hawk crosses low exactly as you choose the harder honesty. Numbers repeat, not to thrill you, but to confirm the metronome you've set. Entanglement answers quickly now because your signal has fewer harmonics of doubt. Phase transition pressure peaks as a choice that is small in public and seismic in the field. It may be the unsent message, the meeting you decline, the 10-minute walk you take instead of scrolling the nervous system into static. It may be the object you carry to the door and release, the wardrobe you edit, the document you finally name and file because it belongs to the life you are authoring, not the one bracing for proof. These micro-acts are the levers. The universe wastes no motion, neither should you. You'll feel the click when the lattice flips. It is not fireworks. It's a gear seating its teeth. Temperature shifts a degree at the nape. The tongue remembers the roof of the mouth without being told. The room edges soften as if someone adjusted the world's aperture. Communication from the old timeline loses traction. You do not judge it. It simply fails to find purchase. The new corridor brightens like a hallway learning your footfall. Your name inside your own mouth sounds rounder, less arm. In that moment, the observer loop completes its metamorphosis. Watching becomes hosting. Hosting becomes directing. You are no longer a body orbiting conditions. You are an axis around which honest conditions prefer to form. Morphic resonance updates in the species library. The template of choose coherence at the seam copies itself across unseen distances. An aunt you've never met sleeps deeply for the first time in months. A teenager on another continent breathes one count longer before replying. The field is efficient like that. Honor the crossing with one clean gesture. Step outside, place your palm to a wall or a tree, and let your pulse meet something older than your story. Whisper once, coherence. Then stand still until you feel the return pulse, stone or bark telling you that you've been registered on the larger grid. The body will inventory itself one more time. Crown cool, heart warm, belly steady, and then the pressure that brought you here will release like a tide turning. Do not rush to prove the new timeline by forcing outcomes. The first hour after a shift is sacred. Let reality find you and introduce itself. Walk slowly through thresholds. Speak only from the long exhale. Thank what left without confessionals. Bless what arrives without grasping. You will know you're anchored when silence feels inhabited, not empty. When the next task presents itself with the calm of a placed stone. When the future stops shouting and starts standing quietly in the doorway, smiling as if you've finally recognized each other. Hold there. The mission is about to be named not by thunder, but by the exact stillness that moved the world. Stand in the doorway you just crossed and look not with the eyes, but with the axis behind them. The lattice has turned. You can feel the world's teeth meshing with yours, clean and almost shy, as if reality were relearning your name from the inside out. This is not private victory. It's public physics. Every breath you take in coherence writes a brighter line in the species library, and morphic resonance copies it outward, like dawn passing window to window across a sleeping city. Your mission is elegantly simple. Keep the field clean around you. Keep the seat behind your eyes. Keep the 4-pause-8 cadence as the hush between movements. You are a node in a living constellation lighthouse, tuning fork, threshold keeper, drafted by resonance to stabilize phase transition in human time. Where you stand, noise loses its economy. Where you breathe, honesty prefers to organize. Where you choose authorship over habit, 1,000 unseen choices elsewhere become easier by a gram, then by a stone, then by a shore. Guard your frequency the way a temple guards flame, not with panic, but with stewardship. Choose environments that multiply coherence. Decline the auditions that ask you to pretend you are still orbit. Let silence remain inhabited. Speak from the long exhale. Measure success by the clarity of your signal, not the applause of rooms still timed to yesterday. Entanglement will handle logistics. Synchronicity will move resources like weather. Your labor is alignment. Listen for assignments as pressure gradients more than headlines. A nudge to walk, a sentence that arrives whole, a name that warms the sternum, a dream corridor lit further than before. Answer them as you just answered this seam with exactness, not force. DNA restructuring will continue its quiet ritual under your skin. Epigenetic inks will keep drying in the script of trust. Let the body be the altar that remembers the vow. Axis, not orbit. When fear performs its old monologue, meet it with choreography instead of debate. Thumb, middle finger, click. Sternum bell, 3 times. 1 cycle of breath. Then deliver the author's line the field now recognizes as law. Collapse what is complete. Assemble what is true. Watch the scene rethread itself. Teach by presence. Correct by example. Bless by coherence. You will notice that people heal near you the way air clears near forests. You will become easy to live beside. Understand the scale. You're participating in a species-wide phase transition, ice to water, water to cloud. Institutions will creak, calendars will stutter, old architectures will ask to be relieved of duty. Don't confuse their dissolving with your undoing. You are not the collapse, you are the order parameter emerging. Hold the axis, keep the lamp, let emergence work, and remember the promise encoded in your first yes. Your liberation is not an exit, it's an entrance for many. Each day you keep coherence. Another child somewhere sleeps without the inherited tremor. Another elder releases a vow that kept love rationed. Another argument in a kitchen ends before the first sharp word is found. This is how the world turns without spectacle. 1,000,000 precise choices in the gap. Now step through the hour that is opening. The field is listening, cheek to cheek, ready to conspire with your next exhale. Breathe as the author, walk as the axis, speak as the altar, and when the moment presents itself as it will, clean as a bell, remember the law you just proved in your bones. When you break the habit of your watching, the world you watched falls softly in an instant and rebuilds itself in secret alignment with the one who finally learned to see.